in the same time, because to be in a demonstration, as we said, it's not a trip. It's an act. It's an act of activism. So it's there, so it's there. And then always the governments or rulers or police and those who are against demonstrations, they always working with you or with me, the game of that, who is going to give up first? Okay, make it longer, make it harsh, making those tough conditions till see who is going to give up and say, okay, this is the white flag, so I'm not going there again. But this is what is people are, what I felt from the Facebook, from the tweeting, and all these people who are talking about this demonstration. Now I'm going today and taking with my kids with me, or I'm going to keep my kids, but I'm going with my brother. And all these things is going on these days over there, simply because people are there to stay or there to ask for something.
Thomas Gurgesian, an Egyptian writer and analyst, with us in the studio as we cover continuing live events in Cairo. We focus here on Tahrir Square, but it's bigger than that. It heads out into the streets which feed Tahrir Square. It is a story right across Cairo. It has been right across Egypt for the last week as well. Live and continuing coverage right here on Al Jazeera. At 1100 hours GMT, 1 p.m. in Cairo. I'm Kamal Santamaria with Al Jazeera's live extended continuing coverage of what has turned into, over the past week, some quite historic events in Egypt. This is your live shot of Tahrir Square, Cairo, the focal point, the place where the crowds gather every day, the streets which feed Tahrir Square and bring the people there to protest. And over the last week, we've seen such a change from the initial violence against the police and between the police and the pro-democracy supporters, to the protests, the sit-ins, the million-man march on Tuesday, I think that was, if I remember rightly. And then Wednesday, the change came. Let's run through some of those pictures through Wednesday, because these always bear repeating, the way that it changed. Because the unknown element came in, a new element, if I can say it that way, the pro-Mubarak supporters, instead of it being the democracy supporters versus the police or versus the army or versus the quote-unquote authorities, it brought the pro-Mubarak supporters in. Yes, the army's still out on the street there, but it brought the pro-Mubarak supporters. Have a look at these pictures where you see modern... Sorry, those ones are early pictures from this morning. Forgive me, that was some of the rioting overnight. These are the pictures we were looking for from earlier. This is when you got the clashes between the two sides, this new unknown element which came in. And all the while, the military is still standing back. You see the tanks there, bottom left of your screen. They're in Tahrir Square, but still holding back. The police is not there anymore. It's citizen law in many cases. You've got pro-Mubarak supporters trying to take rations away from the pro-democracy supporters as they head to Tahrir Square. It's a battle zone. One of our correspondents referred to it as that before, and it's probably not going far to say that it is a battle zone. People being treated in the square. It's a battle of the media. It's a battle of the protesters. And in fact, the correspondent who I spoke to about that earlier is on the line again now. It's, you know, a week we've been talking, since the real violence started last Friday, a week we've been talking about these scenes which you just never thought you'd see, and then they changed again, and you never thought you'd see it again, and it's turned into, as you said, a battle zone on the streets of an Arabian capital.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's just to say the least of what we've seen here, because amidst all of that atmosphere of tension between the pro-Mubarak supporters that tried to break through the crowd yesterday and those that actually held their ground, you've seen a very impressive scene of people power. You'd think that what we saw yesterday, and it was certainly horrifying for many of the journalists who covered it, but more importantly for the people here who had to endure it, you would think that this would have in some capacity deterred those from gathering today. Instead, what we've seen really is an impressive scene of determination, because more people have gathered, and as we've been describing, the people here have managed to organize themselves in very functional committees with responsibilities. So you've seen some that have begun to ferry projectiles such as stones and bricks and whatever other supplies they can find in terms of scrap metal in the area to the front lines. They've been able to quickly, and I'm talking about in the matter of like nearly 24 hours, seal off the 5 major roads that lead into the heart of Tahrir Square in very fortified manner. They've set up systems of checking people coming in, and amidst all of that, they are tending to the wounded. There have been makeshift clinics that have been set up here with volunteer doctors coming in and bringing supplies, and all of that, all the protesters that still gather here, bringing with them whatever they can in terms of rations, food, and water. So the scene definitely taking a different tone than what it was on Tuesday evening when it was much more celebratory and festive. Today it has the atmosphere that this is indeed a battlefield.
But is this the, I don't want to say traditional, but over the last week of tradition, this is the sort of lull in the day, the period of build-up as the people continue to fill the square as much as they can, and then, well, who knows what comes later on?
It's true. You know, if we compare it to where we were 24 hours ago, it was the rumors that by then these protesters, the pro-Mubarak protesters, were being bussed in, and we got reports of eyewitnesses telling us that they were being brought in on government-owned buses, and we got reports of some of the people that were arrested that they were indeed carrying police IDs and other, party-affiliated identification. So there were reports that, this time yesterday, something was brewing. Today, again, we are getting a sense that this is not over. People here are not taking great confidence that they are in the clear, that they will go back to the atmosphere that was on Tuesday. And the reason why I say that is because earlier today we spoke to eyewitnesses of people trying to come in. Very much still a sense of chaos beyond the walls of the Tahrir Square here, because we were getting reports that people bringing in supplies and rations were being intercepted by pro-Mubarak supporters. They were having their supplies confiscated and their rations taken off of them. Some of the journalists, and I saw this with my own eyes as they were coming into Tahrir Square, were also prevented from coming in by some of these pro-Mubarak supporters. They sought refuge with the military, but they were definitely not able to come in here and see for themselves what is happening inside the Tahrir Square walls. So yes, you get a sense that they're not over the hill yet in terms of stability and safety inside and outside the Tahrir Square fortifications at this moment.
We talk a lot about the defiance and the determination of the pro-democracy supporters. It's worth flipping that coin and looking at the pro-Mubarak supporters since they came out in such force yesterday. Do you get the sense, or is there talk that they have the same levels of defiance now?
Indeed, I mean, they have been very persistent, and it's very interesting to note the chronology of the events that happened in terms of pro-Mubarak supporters, because, we've been out on the streets now since this first began. We've been in Tahrir since this became the focal point, which was late Friday evening. We did not see any pro-Mubarak supporters for several days here, not even in small numbers, not even in really peaceful manners. But what really was interesting was after the president made his speech, which was widely seen in so many ways as a concession that he was going to step down in September. That's when we began to see some of these pro-Mubarak supporters immediately take to the streets. But what was very interesting about the way they were mobilized, it didn't seem, from what I saw, and I remember reporting live that night as we were returning back to our location, we saw about 300 of them on motorcycles with posters, carrying sticks and knives. It did not seem that this was a protest that was almost a flash protest, something that was very emotional. It seemed to have an element of coordination to it, and we only saw that exacerbated the following day. And I've been covering Egyptian politics for some time. We've seen these types of tactics before by various elements that are affiliated and close to the regime, in the sense that wide-scale coordination of protesters in support of President Mubarak. We see a lot during election time, and we see this tactic used to break up protests that happened sometimes in Cairo prior to the events of January 25th. We were told, and again, this is only based on eyewitness accounts, people that have been arrested, or not, I shouldn't say the word arrested, but really captured or detained by the anti-government protesters, the pro-democracy protesters, they said that they have found IDs on many of these pro-Mubarak supporters that suggested that they were either affiliated with the National Democratic Party or that they were previously of the security forces that melted away here on Friday evening. So they used that as evidence to suggest that there was a hand behind this. And many people, including some of Egypt's most notable opposition figures, have really put the blame squarely on the shoulders of the ruling National Democratic Party. They're almost saying that if President Mubarak is going to leave, he's going to try to do it burning the city and allowing Egyptians to fight it out between themselves. And I think this is why many people find the developments of the past 24 hours not only to say alarming, but also very odd in terms of the timing and the concentration of where these protesters decided to come. Egypt is a very big city. Cairo is a very big city. There's a lot of international media here. Had they wanted to simply draw the attention of the international media, they would have been